Without a doubt, Thesis-Gate is the most embarrassing scandal in Taiwan's 30-year history as a democratic society. We are watching a scandal that rivals the United States' 1972 Watergate scandal unfold before our very eyes. Back then, US President Richard Nixon was at the height of his power. He used his influence to hide the truth and conceal evidence. He successfully won re-election in 1972. During Nixon's second term, FBI agent W. Mark Felt was unhappy with how the president politicized the Federal Investigation Bureau. Felt went on to become the informant widely known as Deep Throat, providing vital information about the Watergate scandal to media outlets, exposing crucial details. As scrutiny from the public and the media mounted, a grand jury indicted several of Nixon's closest aides, known as the Watergate 7, who played a role in concealing the truth. Nixon resigned from the presidency on August 8, 1974, after securing a guarantee from his successor, Gerald Ford, that he'd be pardoned. At the time, Nixon was only 2 years into his second term. History repeats itself. Thesis-Gate is entering its third act, and it's going to end much like Watergate did. Tsai is running out of dirty tricks to play, and she can't change any of the lies she's already doled out. At this point, Tsai can only rely on her die-hard supporters to uphold the illusion of her fabrications. Keeping Thesis-Gate under wraps is Tsai's most urgent national security issue. Much like Nixon and his Watergate 7, Tsai also has a core team of aides that help in carrying out her lie. These individuals include Shi Fanglong. Shi was responsible for fabricating the University of London's response to Thesis-Gate. She was responsible for the school's 2016 press release congratulating Tsai on her election, and a statement from the university dated October 8, 2019. Xiao B. Kim. Xiao was part of a 5-person team that attempted to smuggle a thesis into university libraries in 2011. Wellington Koo, Secretary General of Taiwan's National Security Council. He is also one of the founding partners of the Formosa Transnational law firm. Formosa Transnational represents Tsai and her associates in all legal battles related to Thesis-Gate. The law firm constantly stalls in court proceedings, delaying the possibility of a timely outcome. Chen Ju. Chen is the newly appointed president of the Control Yuan. There are already 2 Thesis-Gate-related cases pending in the Control Yuan. One is from October 2019 and alleges that Tsai self-plagiarized her doctoral thesis. That case is requesting that Tsai's thesis be removed from the National Central Library. The other case was submitted by former lawmaker Chiu Yi, in which he accuses Tsai of infringing upon Taiwan's University Act. Chen's appointment as Control Yuan president is meant to halt progress on those 2 cases. Zhu Junzang, head of the Ministry of Education's Department of Higher Education. On July 19, 2019, Zhu classified documents related to Tsai's time as an associate professor. He then held a press conference on the same day, endorsing Tsai's black leather-bound thesis from 2019 as a thesis from 1984. Xie Ziwei, Taiwan's representative to Germany. He was also part of the 5-person thesis smuggling team. He helps control public opinion and works on smearing the Thesis-Gate campaign. The Control Yuan, the courts, the media. It doesn't matter where Thesis-Gate rears its head. Tsai has a tight grasp on all watchdog outlets. This is Tsai's safety net, a safety net which she hopes will make Thesis-Gate disappear from public forums. Thesis-Gate is constantly developing. In our last episode, we revealed that examination officials asked overseas diplomats to authorize Tsai's education credentials for the second time in 1987. Our exposure of said event prompted an immediate personnel adjustment in the central government. Less than a week after our show on August 20th premiered, the presidential office appointed Deputy Secretary General to the President Liu Jianxing head of the examination yuan. Who is Liu Jianxing? He is one of Tsai's trusted advisors. Liu has helped Tsai many times throughout her political endeavors. The media has called Liu one of Tsai's trusted generals. He had been Deputy Secretary General to the President for 4 years and 3 months. This most recent transfer attracted attention from the Democratic Progressive Party and Tsai's confidants alike. What would prompt Tsai to move one of her most trusted associates to another institution? In March of 2020, a presidential office hack shook Taiwan's political arena. The information leaked was rather remarkable, including contents from Liu's computer. Liu was roped into emails that discussed controversial topics like how to discipline unruly party members and how to create false opinion polls. In order to be included in such schemes, Liu must be very close to Tsai. Liu admitted in interviews earlier in the year that he had one goal, and that was to secure Tsai Ing-wen's re-election on January 11th, 2020. To achieve that goal, of course, meant running interference on Thesis-Gate. We now know without a shadow of a doubt that Liu is involved in Tsai's thesis cover-up. He is in Tsai's inner circle. Liu, with his heavy political biases, has been appointed president of the examination yuan, a position that demands impartiality. What else could he be tasked with if not obstructing Thesis-Gate? Dr. Huan Si-lin made a post on Facebook that discussed the greater implication of Liu's appointment. Dr. Lin said that this latest development is closely tied to Tsai's thesis scandal. After all, the examination yuan oversees the Ministry of Examination, which possesses some of Tsai's employment files from 30 years ago. Detrimental evidence of Tsai's academic dishonesty can be found at National Zhengzi University, the Education Ministry, the Foreign Ministry, and the Examination Ministry. Indeed, we find in old files from the Examination Ministry Tsai's verification documents from 1987 and a letter that says, "Thank you for your letter concerning Mr. Ing-wen Tsai. I enclose a copy of the appropriate regulations giving details of the PhD course and its entrance requirements. The minimum period of study for the PhD degree is 2 calendar years." This particular file should have contained literature from the London School of Economics and Political Science outlining its PhD program. The document supposedly would have said that the minimum period of study for a PhD program is 2 years, thus making it possible for Tsai to obtain her doctorate in such a short period of time.
另外，全职学生的最低修业年限应该从该时点起算2学年。等一下，我会附一个相关的网址，让各位可以去查 LSE 对于这些学生的入学的相关规定。
33 years ago, there was no internet. The Education Ministry did not provide the Examination Ministry any documents outlining a minimum period of study. That's exactly why examination officials needed further clarification on the matter. Information about a PhD program's period of study has nothing to do with privacy or personal information, yet the Education Ministry selectively hid such information. Why? Could it be that the Education Ministry didn't think to fabricate such a document during the Examination Ministry's first inquiry? How many documents in Taiwan's examination institutions pose a threat to Tsai Ing-wen? In order to prevent word of Thesis-Gate from getting out, Tsai Ing-wen made sure to cover her bases. Institutions in London are using the pandemic as an excuse to stall proceedings, while officials in Taiwan have hindered Thesis-Gate efforts in the courts. The date of this episode's first broadcast is also the 1-year anniversary of Tsai's first filing of her suit against Dr. Peng, Dr. He, and Dr. Lin. This case has been in limbo for 365 days. There have been no efforts to investigate the matter or question those involved. There is no progress nor any hope of an outcome. It exists in a judicial purgatory. The defamation cases that Tsai filed on September 4, 2019 against Dr. Pang, Dr. Lin, and Dr. He have existed for a year now. Taipei District Prosecutor Huang Wei refuses to call the case to trial. The countersuit Dr. Pang filed against Tsai Ing-wen has also gone 300 days without any developments. When Dr. Pang went to the Taipei District Prosecutor's office, prosecutors refused to see him. His requests for a trial were ignored. Another case that calls the existence of Tsai's thesis into question was dismissed by Judge Zhang Yonghui on January 15, 2020, 4 days after Taiwan's presidential elections. Dr. Pang appealed the decision, which the courts filed on March 11th. However, 5 months later, the appeal has gone unanswered. A case filed against Judge Zhang Yonghui for forgery and defamation had its first court date on July 20th. However, only the plaintiff was informed of this date. The defendant was not. On July 19, 2019, the Education Ministry classified documents related to Tsai's tenure as an associate professor until December 31, 2049. When Professor He petitioned against the action in February of 2020, the Education Ministry dismissed her request 3 months later. Professor He then filed for administrative action, which authorities have yet to act on. The case Tsai filed on September 9th only serves to prove that Taiwan's prosecutors are not exempt from politics. Taiwan's prosecutors should be able to operate independently. However, that is not the case. We see that the prosecutor's office bends to political pressure. If it didn't, then why did Dr. Pang's pleas for a court date go unanswered? How is it that a case can get stuck in limbo with absolutely no progress? In truth, the minute Tsai Ing-wen said that she was going to prosecute publicly, people in the legal industry knew that these cases were just a mere smokescreen. Rumor had it that Tsai was going to withdraw her cases after the election. Professor He took to Facebook to demand an apology from Tsai if Tsai withdrew her case. He says that by withdrawing her case, it proves that Tsai was merely abusing her presidential powers to manipulate the judicial system to intimidate her 3 opponents into silence. However, Dr. Pang did the unthinkable. He hit Tsai with a countersuit, rendering any attempt from Tsai to remove herself from the courts through withdrawal moot. The only Thesis-Gate related court case that has seen any progress is the one Dr. Pang filed against Presidential Office spokesperson Xavier Chang. Both sides met in court on May 29th of this year, during which Judge Zuo Yuxuan famously asked Chang, "You expect me to believe a bunch of photocopies?" Furthermore, Zuo asked Chang how hard it was to provide original documents, as well as told Chang to think twice about shouldering responsibility for the president. After the hearing on May 29th, the judge ordered Chang to provide an original diploma, as well as any other documents proving Tsai's credentials. Afterwards, the Formosa transnational law firm who represents Chang submitted flimsy evidence like messages sent to Tsai by leaders in other countries congratulating her on her re-election. In the end, the law firm only submitted Tsai's original replacement diploma from 2015 to the court. There was nothing else. This move showed, if nothing, a blatant disregard for Judge Zuo and the orders he handed down on May 29th. Dr. Pang's lawyers were having none of it. On July 6th, they accused the defendants of acting irreverently toward the court. The hearing on May 29th prompted another wave of discussion revolving around Thesis-Gate, something that Tsai Ing-wen desperately wants to avoid. Chang made many missteps. People discussed how he kept bringing Tsai's thesis up when Tsai wanted the topic buried. He allegedly publicized the press release announcing the president's intention to sue without the president's prior knowledge. Even the evidence he presented in court couldn't escape scrutiny. Former presidential office spokesperson Luo Ziqiang lambasted Chang publicly on Facebook. As soon as Tsai decided to engage in public prosecution, it was clear that she had no intention of bringing out her original degree. Chang probably thought that the trial would never make it to a point where there'd be an inquiry into evidence. However, Judge Zuo went there, going against all of Formosa Transnational's expectations. Zuo even requested that documents be requisitioned from schools in London. Formosa Transnational's only recourse was to motion the court for more favorable winds. Here, Formosa Transnational claims that they did not agree to obtaining evidence from the London School of Economics and Political Science. They claimed that their initial statement said they would only provide the court with Tsai's 2015 diploma before deciding if requisitioning documents from the London School of Economics and Political Science was necessary. However, the court record is clear. Both plaintiff and defense have signed off on it. Can they really go against what the record says? Moreover, can Judge Zuo accept such sudden backpedaling? Formosa Transnational claims that current evidence is sufficient for the judge to make a decision. Further inquiry into evidence is unnecessary. Formosa Transnational says that photocopies of Tsai's degree submitted as evidence on May 29th were accepted into the court. They say that no issue was taken with the document being an original or a photocopy at the time. Differentiation between the two is willful misrepresentation of fact. However, the ones engaging in willful misrepresentation is Formosa Transnational. Judge Zuo asked Chang if he expected the court to believe a photocopy. Zuo even asked Chang how hard it was to provide an original document. The judge was clear in asking for an original document, and by doing so had already taken issue with photocopies. Formosa Transnational believes that Tsai's 2015 degree is sufficient proof to close the case. They believe that Tsai's presence in court is unnecessary. Formosa Transnational believes that the plaintiff should be the ones in charge of tracking down witnesses, and they refuse to let Tsai sign over her power of attorney. Formosa Transnational asked Judge Zuo to keep the focus on Xavier Chang. However, Tsai Ing-wen is an undeniable part of this puzzle. After all, the case revolves around Tsai's personal credentials. If Formosa Transnational refuses to bring out original documents while barring Tsai from transferring her power of attorney, then this case is destined to go nowhere. The 2015 diploma submitted to court can only act as a reference. It is absolutely not legally binding. It can be easily reproduced, meaning it can't serve as an official document with lasting implications. The 2015 degree is supposedly a replacement. There is nothing verifying its authenticity. Anyone can forge a similar document. Formosa Transnational believes that the Education Ministry has already provided sufficient evidence that Tsai's credentials were properly vetted before she became an associate professor at NCCU. They say that Zhu Junzang has done enough. Formosa Transnational asserts that Tsai was hired by NCCU in a fair and proper manner, therefore eliminating the need to look at her career records. Let's forget the fact that Formosa Transnational is stepping out of bounds by telling a judge what they do or don't need to see. However, if the documents do prove that Tsai was hired as an associate professor legitimately, as Formosa Transnational claims, then there is an even greater need for these documents to be publicized. That way, there can be a fair and open assessment of information instead of taking the Education Ministry at their word. If the classified files can prove the legitimacy of Tsai's education, then why shouldn't they be made public? We'd finally like to find out which year Tsai was hired. We'd also like more information about the 3 volumes submitted as part of her application process. Lastly, Formosa Transnational denies that the Senate House and Institute of Advanced Legal Studies never held a copy of Tsai's 1984 thesis. They say that whether or not those libraries have Tsai's thesis now is irrelevant to whether or not the thesis was submitted to them back then. Formosa Transnational is free to deny anything they want. However, Dr. Peng's trip to London proved otherwise. There are also countless other pieces of correspondence and evidence that run contrary to what Formosa Transnational says. Everything will come down to what the judge decides. Xavier Chang's case has pretty much rendered the May 29th court records obsolete. It's almost as if he's been forced into a corner. Chang and his legal team are practically asking the judge to hand down a decision and end their suffering. They can't handle any more inquiries into evidence. They can't handle another court appearance. According to Tsai's team, they possess the keys to silencing their opposition, actual degrees and employment records, so why don't they put any of it to use? Why do they instead choose to go against court records and file motions that just draw things out? The final result of this case may not go the way people hope. Lawyers can make extraordinary arguments and case-halting decisions can be handed down by judges at any time. Despite this, Thesis-Gate will not end with the bang of a gavel. All of the viewers watching this program are part of a larger jury. We believe you are just and moral. We trust that you know the facts and desire the truth. Thesis-Gate will end once God hands down his judgment from the heavens.